All right, welcome back, folks, to the Week 6 recap, Week 7 preview. I'm joined, as always, by your usual co-host, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Defending Champ, and fresh off a week where he was the high scorer, we are joined for the first time ever by Mr. Trevor Alpert.
Thank you guys. Really, it's an honor to be here.
Glad to have you on the podcast. Let me share my screen and we will dive right in. Week 6, a week where we had a number of close matchups, closer than some of our matchups usually are. And as usual, given it's my screen, we'll start with my matchup here. One that came down to quite literally like the second to last play of Monday Night Football, as Eckler stretched for the end zone to break my little heart. Unfortunately, came up a yard short. This one, not great management by me. I put this in kind of the group chat after the weekly report came out. I won like every award for mismanaging this week. Had like some of the best players on my bench, top quarterback, running back, wide receiver on my bench. Not good management, and playing against a spirited Alex squad that was coming off his first win of the season. Gave me a run for my money. Both of us were flirting with the median too, and lucky to come out with a win here. 1-1, probably fair given how I played this week.
Yeah. I was kind of pulling for Alex to pull this off just for the sake of keeping him kind of relevant in this league this year. But either way, great game. Fantastic. I mean, it was the closest game of the week. I saw the difference was ETN versus Hurts. ETN had two more points than Hurts. I mean, obviously that wasn't literally the difference, but like when you look at those two players, Hurts not getting over 20, ETN getting over 20 points. Um, and Alex could have pulled this off. Like you said, it came down to the last play on Monday night. But Nick, you're get to 500. How does it feel?
We are who we thought we were, and we let them off the hook. No, I mean we're there. Like I think we're in the playoff mix. We're in a playoff position right now. I feel like this squad is good enough. I mean, we had a lot of firepower left on the bench. Like if I play the right lineup and I get lucky with a couple guys scoring touchdowns, I think there's a really hard team to beat. But it's not like I'm unbeatable either. I've lost half my games so far, so I don't think anyone wants to play me. But it's not like I would consider myself a shoe-in to be playing for a championship or anything like that.
I think Colin really wanted this game to go the other way, so he wasn't the only team to lose to Alex this season. uh, this was an interesting performance by Alex. I mean, usually we don't expect the team to score more than 100 points, and he didn't really get a lot of firepower from his star players, right? Kittle with less than 1. Eckler won't usually score less than 10 when he's healthy. But he, picked it up. Kicker, Dalton Schultz in the flex, right? So he got points where he needed them, just not quite enough. And Nick, I mean, you didn't play your best lineup, but you still got to win. These are the games that you kind of got to win if you want to. And even if you're not going to be, I don't know if did you beat the median this week?
No, came up
No.
short.
Okay. These are important wins coming down the stretch. This could be the difference between being 12-12 and 13-11 at the end of the season. So if you can pull these out, especially when Kirk Cousins is seeming to regress a little bit back to the mean after a super hot start, and Jamar Chase coming back to earth a little bit. These are important wins to secure, even if you're going 1-1 in the week. So big win for you, I would say.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, I'm just looking here. Your max was the second highest max of the league. So obviously you have the players. You just got to get out of your own way, as you said.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I was saying last week to beat Alex, you need to score 110, and he scored exactly 110. So you had to beat 110, and you did. So well done.
Thank you, sir. A matchup of two spirited opponents who really both wanted this win. Another really close matchup here. Thoughts on Troy just edging out Rob?
Well, Rob's in a free fall. He's 8 losses in a row. That's tough. He really needed this one. I mean, so did Troy. They're both, kind of down there vying for those playoff spots. Already halfway through the season. But with 8 L's in a row, that's tough. I think Rob might have to force something. Um, even in the waiver wire, he picked someone up today in the waiver wire, right?
He did. I'm not able to view that at the moment.
Yeah, no, I don't
Um,
remember. But he's I mean, these are the teams that are going to be vying for the playoffs, like fighting it out. They're going to have to win close matchups. When you win by 4, that feels good. Um, so this is really a story of two teams that just needed the win, and Troy was able to squeak one out here. A lot of these guys are underperforming, but when you're winning a game 117, 113, you're definitely happy with that, and you just move to the next week.
yeah, these are two teams that are kind of in the same. Entering the week, we're in the same spot. I want to argue that leaving the week, they're kind of still in the same spot, 9 and 10 seeds outside looking in right now. Both haven't had a ton of success in the points for and have played a really tough schedule. If you look at their points again so far, I want to ask a quick, not really shine or shade, but for the rest of the season, would you rather have Troy's roster or Rob's roster trying to fight to get into that 8 spot in the playoffs?
That's tough. Um, let's see here.
I
Rob had
think
some
I'd
players.
rather have Troy's.
Yeah.
Troy's he's carrying 3 quarterbacks right now. He could probably lose a quarterback and pick up another skill position player. I don't remember if he made moves in the waiver wire that wouldn't be showing here, but Christian Watson, I still think on his bench is going to be a good player. He just got back Cup, who is finding his groove where he usually leaves off. I still think Joe Burrow is going to improve in the second half of the season. I don't believe that he's going to be like a sub 20 fantasy football quarterback all season. So I feel like there's more pieces that I look at Troy's roster, and I think he hasn't quite squeezed all the juice that he can out of this roster yet. Whereas I think Rob is probably playing closer to the ceiling of his roster.
Yeah, he had some
Yeah,
players who kind of stepped it up this week, right? Like Zeke played well. I mean, Rashid Shaheed played really well too. If he could get these guys clicking on the same weeks when Hawkinson plays well and Mahomes does what he's supposed to do, I think he could be a bit of a scary team. But he's also he's lacking a little bit of depth, I would say, especially in the running back position. And now Anthony Richardson is out for the rest of the season too. So if he could keep his starting lineup kind of hitting 120 every week, he should be okay. But I agree. I think I'm going to lean Troy for the rest of the season over Rob.
I would say Troy as well. I mean, Rob has some pieces. He clearly has a big hole, that RB2 spot. Can't just be Ezekiel Elliott. You know, I'd rather have Troy's team the rest of the season. But Rob actually just picked up Evans, that rookie on the Rams, who's replacing Kyron and what the other guy in LA. But I mean, if he shows that he's capable, I mean, 22-year-old running back and a good offense, Kyron Williams has been able to do it. I think Zach Evans can show up. I think that could be a spark for Rob's team, but still taking Troy's.
Any other thoughts, Treb?
Yeah, no, I'd probably also take Troy's team. He's got a lot of good receivers, and he's got Isaiah Pacheco, which is young guy that's got a lot of potential. So yeah, that's
I'll also be curious to see if Troy continues to start both LA wide receivers on his team. I feel like right now he's doing that because he's trying to figure out, like, are they both going to get a lot of targets, or is Cup going to eat up what Puka was getting early in the season? And it might take a few weeks to kind of figure out whether Puka is going to continue to show out, or whether he's just fading into like a secondary piece in the offense now that Cup is back. But that'll be interesting to see, like, how long does Troy ride with both of them in the starting lineup, and does he eventually think it's one or the other?
Yeah, he's got 2 Bengals, 2 Rams. Um, he's gonna have to sort his team out soon, but I'd rather have his team.
Yeah. Colin, you got a good fight here from another team on the outside looking in of the playoffs. Underperformed your expected point total by just a hair, but were able to come out with a win against Johnny.
Yeah, good win. Only 119 to his 104. But this is, as we are going to talk about later in this episode here, we're going to refer back to the draft since it's the halfway point. But when I was saying after the draft was I was drafting for not a lot of big injury record players and just overall consistency, and that's what I've been getting. Knock on wood, so far, thus far, I don't have any major injuries, let alone injuries at all. I mean, McCaffrey might be out this week, but other than that, everyone's been playing every week. So that breeds consistency, and that's what this win is. 119 to 104. I mean, I'm playing a weaker team, and he only put up 104, but that's what consistency means. Like, you don't have to have giant games week in, week out, but as long as you're getting it over the line, 120 will do it for you. And then you look at Johnny's team. I said last week he has no spark. And this is the second straight week that he has nobody score over 20 points, barring Sam Howell last week. So only one player for the past 2 weeks has scored over 20 points for Johnny. There's no spark, no juice, got nothing going for him. He's going to have to force something, I think, if he's going to turn this thing around, make it to the playoffs. I mean, it's now or never. He's 2-10. He's got to make something happen sooner rather than later, and it's got to be, it's got to be right now. There's no waiting on this one.
Yeah, he's he's been the biggest head scratcher as far as teams go this season. I would have expected more from his record. Looking at his roster, I would have expected that he would be much closer to the playoffs than where he is right now at the 11 seed. I don't know. I'm still not totally out on his team. I still think he can make a late run, but I think he has to make a couple of trades. He has talent across the board, albeit they all underperformed the last 2 weeks. He has trade bait, I would say, to move some pieces around. I think he should be taking advantage of that. I'm not sure if he's been super trade active over the last 4 or 5 years, but I mean, you look across his lineup, and everybody on his team is a first or second string guy. Quarterback's a little bit of a question, right? But I don't know. I feel like his team is much better than his record indicates. And unfortunately, he's probably going to have to dump some of his players to get some more action because his draft strategy, I guess, didn't really work out as he had planned for.
He has 6 running backs on his bench. His bench is 6 running backs, a quarterback, and a receiver. He's gonna do something. Do something, Johnny. Let me see you do something for me.
Yeah, and I mean Spears and Ingram are guys on that bench who, like, the arrow is pointing up for them, the rest of the season. So if he's trying to, like, find someone who wants to hopefully buy into the hype on those guys, that they could be a potential piece for sure.
I want to do a shine or shade. Right now, Johnny's the 11 seed. I don't anticipate that he'll be finishing lower than the 11 seed, but shine or shade, he's at 2-10. Shine or shade that Johnny finishes with more than 7 wins this season.
So that would mean like 7, 8, and 16 or better, right? Mm-hmm. Which basically means going 500 the rest of the way.
Yeah, he has to get 6 wins of the next 12 possible wins. Right. So 500 the second half of the season.
I will shade that. I do think he's better than 2-10, but I don't know if he's 6-6 on the back half.
I think part of it is his schedule, depending on who he's playing. He play a factor into that. But 500 after a 2-10 first half of the season, that's gonna be tough. I think I'll have to shade that as well.
Trev?
Oh, is that okay? I didn't know what order.
Just jump in, baby.
Yeah.
On in, baby. The water's fine.
Yeah, I think I love that we have the median thing, and obviously you guys are already accounting for that. I think he could do it. I think it's possible. You know, Johnny's always been a contender in this league since I've been a part of it. So I'll shine. I think he can pull it off.
Love that. Love some
Cam, what do you
positivity.
think?
I'm just taking a look at his schedule thus far this year, who he's played. Through 6 weeks, he's played five current playoff teams. So he's had a pretty tough schedule up until this point. So he's going to have I would venture to say that he's going to have a relatively easier schedule through the rest of the season. Um, I think a lot of it hinges on the fact that he makes some sort of trade or picks up a stud on the waivers. He's got to mix up his roster a little bit. At this point, he knows what his roster is. He has trade potential with some of these players, even though they aren't performing super well. I'm going to shine that he finishes 8-16.
I like it.
Well, and
Or
he's
better.
been active too. He's got
Mhm.
only $58 in FOB left. So clearly
Right.
he's been trying to make the moves happen. Maybe they're just not clicking yet.
Yeah.
Um, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. It's just I would say it's unlikely considering some of these teams feel
Yeah.
and look a bit stronger, including Trevor's team, I would say.
Mhm.
Speaking of Fab, Shine or Shade, Alex uses at least $1 of Fab before the end of the season.
I'm going to shine it.
That
I
would
think he
Has he not
he's
used any yet?
he
No.
hasn't used any, but he has submitted some claims. Um, I think that at some point, you know, he has Philly defense. They're going to be on bye in a couple weeks. He's going to have to pick up a defense at some point. I'm going to shine that he uses it at least on one. Maybe he won't go with the $0 fab strategy to pick up a defense. I think he uses at least one. I think he used at least one last year too. So I'm going to shine it.
I'll shine that he uses one, but definitely not like 10. Maybe not even 5. Shine one though.
I don't know his history with it or anything, but I feel like at some point he might as well. I'm sure like it'll
Yeah.
come in handy for him, especially him having the most left. Yeah, I'm sure he will at some point.
Maybe he'll accidentally do it. He'll be trying to set his lineup and accidentally hit one or
Oh no.
something.
My coins.
A matchup here of two teams that are firmly entrenched in the playoff race. Two teams that I think were both 8-2 coming into this week. Eric was projected based on the pre-week point totals to dominate, and he did get a sizable victory here over Jason. Anybody have thoughts on Eric's dismantling of the Smoke and Jays?
It's just consistency. Similar, I mean, my team, but he has a better team. He has the most points for in the league. He's just consistent. It's all there is to it. It doesn't matter who it is. It's likely usually most certain Tua because they're just going off. But it's enough to win games. It's enough to put the most points on the board, than any other team. So it's just consistency from Eric winning 120 to 90. 120 is going to do it, and is going to get it done for you in this league. So that's the number you should be aiming for every week.
Yeah, I'm going to eat my words on this because last week we talked about two of the scariest rosters. I kind of gave Jason the edge, maybe even over Eric's team after we saw what Jason did last week. But Eric is, to quote Nick and to quote Romeo Cornell, is who we thought he was, right? Even I wouldn't even say this is Eric's best week. He still underperformed by about 17 points, right? And he still was able to get a 30-point win. So Eric is still very much one of the scariest teams in this league. I kind of expected a little bit more of Jason this week, especially now that he's kind of at full strength with his roster. Maybe not as scary as I had originally anticipated last week, but still not somebody that I'm looking forward to playing in the future. But I don't know. Even when Bijan doesn't have a great game, Devontae Adams doesn't have a great game, T. Higgins underperforming as well. He just finds ways to create points across the rest of his roster, whether it's Drake London or Raheem Mostert having some sort of renaissance in his career. Yeah, Eric is him so far in this league.
Yeah, Eric's a very cagey team. He's got a lot of ways to beat you, a lot of weaponry, and he doesn't have to fire on all cylinders to get a win. I'm still waiting to see Jonathan Taylor do it. He's back.
Yeah.
You would think being well rested, not playing the first few weeks. He doesn't even look like the best running back on that team at the moment. Cam traded away the best running back on that team. So we can dive into that deal a little bit more, but
and it was Jonathan Taylor's ankle, not ACL. It was his ankle, so he's probably, those are tough to come back from.
Yeah,
Just like a nagging ankle injury. So
yeah, you look at the snap count, right? And he only was 42% snap count last week. So I think they're working him back in. And if you look at the schedule over the next 4 weeks, they're playing Cleveland, New Orleans. New Orleans might have a good defense, but they also play in the worst division of football. Carolina, New England. So I expect that snap count gets higher than 50%, certainly, and he gets more than 8 rush attempts in a game. He's getting utilized in the receiving game too. So I feel like it's just going to be kind of a slow roll until he gets back up to speed. But he's currently the 68th best running back. I don't anticipate that he'll finish outside the top 50, probably finishes inside the top 35, I would say.
Trev, any other views, or should we move on to the next matchup here?
Yeah, no, Eric's got a good team. I'm just looking back at week 2. He absolutely smoked me after I was coming off the league high there. So yeah, I've never met the guy, but he seems like he knows what he's doing. So
Cam, your matchup here, I think the highest scoring matchup, and certainly the most points in a loss here. Down goes Goliath at the hand of your sword here.
This one felt good. Josh and I talk a lot of shit in the group chat. We had a couple of back and forths individually through text through the week. Sucked to see Kyron go down. He's been kind of a focal point in my offense so far. But this is a week where I clicked again, thankfully. And I have a couple question marks on the roster, tight end certainly being one of them. But helped to have a good showing from the defense. And this is a week where I'm kind of in between. Week 6 was good because I have a lot of folks on bye week 5 and a lot of folks on bye in week 7. So I really wanted to, make sure I got at least one win this week if it was against the median. But it always feels nice to beat deep bench Josh's and flip that profile picture he has around a little bit.
Yeah, this definitely is a good example of this league having immense and consistent parity. Last week obviously Alex beat me, but this week Cam beating Josh was great to see for the league's sake. We don't have an undefeated team anymore, which is nice to see because only one person enjoys that. Everyone else doesn't really like that. So good to see a blemish on Josh's record so far this season. But it looks like the quarterback battle might have been the exact difference. 10-point game. Lawrence with 14, Josh Fields with 4. Josh Fields dislocates his thumb, which doesn't ever feel good, I would imagine. And then Trevor Lawrence kind of still underperforming, but gets you 14, enough to get you that 10-point win.
Yeah, it was also sad to see Josh spend, a quarter of his fab on Josh Mari DiMercato there, who I think has already exited Josh's roster.
Currently off his roster.
Yeah, so that was 12 fab per fantasy point earned by him on Josh's roster. Not a great use of funds. But maybe better fab management than Alex's fab management to this point in the season. So that's tough. I think when Justin Fields goes down, and you think you're getting the new starting running back in Arizona, and it turns out you're not. That's going to cost you, but still impressive to beat the median despite those two things happening.
And he doesn't have a backup quarterback right now.
Right.
Yeah, I think he picked up Stafford.
Oh, he did? He did? Okay.
Those two players were the two focal points, or I guess the fulcrums as to why I probably won this game, right? Only 7 combined points between Justin Fields and Josh Mari DiMercato. Interesting way that played out on the roster for Arizona toward the end of the week. I have a similar story, right? I dropped 24 fab on Quentin Johnson, and he hasn't even seen the starting lineup for me yet. He got 0 points this week too, which is disappointing. I think we'll see that. I mean, there's been a handful of weeks so far where somebody's dropped over 20 point and 20 fab on a player and who's ultimately disappointed. We'll see if Rob switches that narrative this week with Zach Evans, but I got lucky with that roster decision in Arizona. And I guess they ended up losing anyway. So yeah, this is a win that I needed. I mean, I'm still very much on the bubble, and the fact that I could take down a top team makes me feel a little more primed for a playoff run.
Trev, how do you sleep at night knowing that you sent Cam Akers to Cam's squad in
Like a
exchange for
baby.
Zach Moss?
I sleep like a baby. Yeah, on this, I mean, Cam, good job on the win here. I mean, it's definitely good to like Colin said, have nobody have an undefeated season, because that's not really fun. But I mean, it took Josh playing the person with the second highest score in the league to actually finally get his first loss, and then he still had, I'm pretty sure he still had the third highest score in the league this week. So I'm not excited to play him next week. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Keep the birthday momentum going. Show them, make them 0-2. Just absolutely like take away all hope.
Yeah, back on the trade, which I know Cam wants me to move off from. We said at the time that it was two guys with big question marks. Like, you could see that trade going any number of directions, right? Like, I was very worried that Akers might take over for Mattinson and be RB1 in short order in Minnesota, and it doesn't look like that's happened at all. And Zach Moss, like, we didn't know what he was going to look like when Jonathan Taylor got back, and I still do think there's time for Moss to cool off, and he probably will. But again, like we say every week, it seems like to this point that has been a very one-sided trade.
Yeah, I mean, leading up to that, it was pretty easy for me to let go of him, because he really wasn't doing. I mean, I think he had a good like first couple of weeks, and then after that, he really dropped off, and I was just like, I need to. And he's obviously the kind of player that you like are gonna start. But then it was just like so much disappointment. So I was like, I need to switch it up or something. And yeah, it definitely worked out for me.
A little background around the trade, I guess, just a couple weeks back, but that was one where I think Trevor had put Cam Akers on the trading block, and I kind of just sent him something, and I was like, there was no conversation. It was like, hey, check your inbox. I sent you something, and then it was just, which was at the time I was happy about.
I think that's my only trade this season. I'm not a big trader, because I mean I find that there's rarely a good trade for both parties. That doesn't really happen often. But yeah, and when I put him up on the trade block, I think there were a few like laughing face emoji reactions to that. That was kind of a dumb decision, but who's laughing now?
Not me.
All of us are laughing because you made it a joke.
And speaking of that impressive squad, Trevor, you severely outperformed your point expectations this week, coming in as the top scorer for the second time this season, right? I think as the leading scorer. Yeah, I mean, your thoughts on an absolute beatdown of Mr. Willie?
Yeah, no, I certainly can't complain. I mean, it was funny. I think going into Monday night, I pretty much already had the matchup the matchup win locked. But at that point, I was just like making sure. I was nervous I wasn't going to beat the median, and I didn't want to go 1-1 on the week. I wanted to obviously want to go 2-0. It's actually, this has been a weird season for me, because I work at this bar on weekends, and it's kind of like a fancy lounge for like preppy liberals that don't watch sports. And so it's like we have one TV, and it's one TV like off in the corner, and and it has like so limited on the games that we can get to. So I miss so much, and I'm constantly checking my phone. Like, all I'm seeing is just the numbers on the sleeper app. I'm not seeing a lot of these plays. So then I remember like being towards the end of my like later on in my shift Monday night and looking at like, oh God, I hope I beat the median. And then I was like, oh shit. I definitely beat the median. So
Nice.
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I feel like I owe you and the whole Team Trevor fan base an apology after last week's podcast where I defamed you and
Oh,
slandered your
I
squad.
actually haven't watched it yet.
So if you don't need to, I'll do
I'm not going to.
it. We were talking about teams that we think are going to finish the furthest from where they are in the standings right now. And I
Okay.
think you were eighth. And I said that my prediction was I could see your team slipping as far as 11th. And so, you know, I took the under basically and said that I saw your squad potentially moving the furthest from where they were. I still think it's not a squad like mine. It's not a squad that's guaranteed to really do anything. And if you told me that one or both of us missed the playoffs, I mean, I could see it. But certainly when this team clicks, I mean, you have a lot of guys I really wanted, like Olave and St. Brown being the top two. So I think I severely misjudged the squad, and you've been leading point person 1/3 of the week so far. So, probably a better squad than I realized.
I appreciate that. I mean, I definitely had some moments towards like in the middle of between now and the beginning of the season where I've been like, damn, I'm really losing it here. I mean, I'm 6-6. I'm in the the bottom half. I've like checked every week, constantly checking like what the playoff predictions are, and it's like every other I'm like in the playoffs, out of the playoffs, in the so like
You're the
yeah,
microwave man. You can heat up you can heat up quickly.
right. Exactly. Yeah, so it's a mystery. Got a long season ahead of us.
Yeah, that helps after especially only scoring 99 points last week, but you still got the win last week. Not the median win, but the head-to-head win. So that was good.
Yeah.
And then come back this week with 155. Definitely feels good. Making Willie the exact same record as you. But Willie was bound to come back down to earth a bit. I mean, he was kind of overperforming a lot of the weeks. But this Willie dud brings him back down to earth. He's 500. He can't always be popping off with some of these no-name players. So good win there from Trevor. Both the L teams are 6-6, and the second half of the season is going to be even more competitive than the first half. I think some of those teams at the bottom are going to make some things happen, maybe rise to the ranks. We won't see such inflated records like an 11-1, maybe no more 10-2s. I think we're going to regress to the median, one might say.
I just want to, before we go to the next, I want to just quickly touch on a trade that happened last week with Colin and Willie. And it looks like even though I think Thielen got 23 and Ramondre got 15, obviously Willie needed about 60 points to catch up to Trevor to even approach a head-to-head win. I still think that through 1 week, it was still a relatively balanced trade. I think Willie got what he needed. I mean, if you go to his bench and we see who he had on his bench from a running back perspective, I think that by far and away, Ramondre is the best running back on his team. So he still has some question marks there. I think he got what he needed. Obviously not nearly enough to take down Trevor, but I'm happy to see Trevor moving in one direction, and all of a sudden Willie's kind of moving in the other direction after 2 pretty solid weeks.
Yeah.
So that was our week 6 recap. As we look at the standings, as Colin mentioned, no undefeated teams left. We also have no winless teams. 3 teams sandwiched at 6-6 there in the middle of the standings. Any thoughts on the standings or kind of teams moving in the right direction, wrong direction as we hit the halfway point of the season here?
Well, the biggest streak right now is 10. Eric has not lost since I beat him week 1. So he has the longest streak of 10 wins in a row. The second longest is Rob with 8 losses in a row. So those two teams are definitely heading in opposite directions. Overall, though, I think this is a very balanced league. Johnny can still make the playoffs. So we have 11 teams vying. You can make the point that, Alex is still in the playoff hunt mathematically, but I'm not sure anything's gonna be changing. But the parity in this league is still good. I think it's a little bit more varied than last year. I don't know if there's 3 10-2 teams or better. But everyone can make the playoffs still, and I love to see that through 6 weeks, halfway through a regular season.
Yeah, I think there's very obviously a divide, and I mean, we saw how Jason played this week. But from the 4 seed down, I mean, those are all 5 through 11, maybe with Alex at 12, but really 5 through 11 are really fighting for those last 4 playoff spots, which you love to see at the halfway point through the league. There's definitely power and balance for the top 4 teams. We'll see what happens with Jason the next couple of weeks, but definitely top 3 teams are holding a lot of the chips as far as power goes in this league. I love when the playoff race comes down to 5 teams fighting for 1 spot. I think actually we have 6 weeks left in the regular season. And depending on what happens with these 6 and 6 squad, Alex might be eliminated from the playoff hunt if he doesn't do something quick in the next week or 2. So
yeah,
I love to. I don't know. I love coming out toward the end of the season with like the magic number playoff wins that each team needs to kind of secure their spot, and it's exciting. This is when fantasy gets a lot of fun and people are kind of forced to make moves.
Yeah,
well, like
I'm going to
said,
change. Go ahead.
Real quick, right? Like you said, between 5 through 11, it's only a 4 win difference. So if Johnny wins the next 2 weeks and the median, and Willie slides the next 2 weeks and the median, they have the same record, and then 5 and 11 are the same. So like it's only 2 weeks away from complete chaos at any point.
I'm going to change my prediction on a team that moves the most over the course of the rest of the season, and I'm actually going to pick Eric. I still think his team is super scary, but you look at he has the highest point total thus far, and maybe that's not sustainable. He has the fewest points against. Maybe that's not sustainable over this course of the season, and only 38 fab left to play with if he does suffer, an injury and needs to shore up that lineup. So you could see some regression to the mean. A team that's through talent had the most points, but maybe through luck had the weakest opponents to this point.
I like to point out my point total being 777.7. Just love that. I don't know where, just had to point it out for all of you.
I like it. So we have a unique opportunity here podcasting on a Wednesday night due to Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We can actually see the waiver claims that were processed. 13 this week, 2 $26 running backs, very pricey running backs. Zach Evans going to Rob's team. He was the high bidder by $9 over Troy. I was in there for 10. Josh, I don't know if he thought the rest of us were asleep, but tried to steal Zach Evans for free. Did not work out for him. Craig Reynolds also available. Only 2 bids for Craig Reynolds. Troy in there for 17 as well. Skip, you paid 17 more than needed for Jordan Mason. I'd like your thoughts.
But I'm happy I got him. I needed the backup. Like, even if McCaffrey does play this week, there's a chance he rolls an ankle in a later week. Jordan Mason looks capable, and with having McCaffrey on my team, I felt I needed him. So I don't care that nobody else bidded for him. I'm happy I have him. $17 might have been way too much, but I need him. I probably won't be. I mean, I might eat my words here, but I probably won't drop him the rest of the season, strictly because McCaffrey can go down at any point, and he looks capable taking over. That second running back role.
Yeah. Rob beat me to the Seattle defense by $2. Well played by him. So this one's interesting. Me dropping Hunter Henry. Josh and I traded 4 players 2 for 2 earlier a couple weeks ago, and the only player from that trade left on either team is Josh Kobe Myers, who remains on Josh's team. The other 3 players involved have all lost their roster spots, which I think is pretty funny. I also picked up Darnell Mooney, dropping Chase Claypool. Kendrick Bourne, former member of my team, now on Trevor's. That's a pretty sneaky $2 acquisition there. I got the Rams for $2. and then some free acquisitions: Brandon McManus, Matt Stafford, Jason Myers, Trev getting his defense, and another quarterback.
Probably inconsequential, but I'm looking at the Rob or Nick's edition of the Rams defense, and you see Rob bid $6, but a little
Well,
bit.
he also bid 6 for Seattle and
Yeah.
got them there.
Yeah, that's funny that he probably would have won if he hadn't gotten the other defense, but Nick got the better of the management chess match and then got the Rams.
Yeah,
I think that's a
thoughts
sneaky
on
good
any
pick.
of that?
From Nick there, that Michael Meyer tight end. He looks like he's finding his feet in that offense. He could be nice and you know, productive for you there. And then even Kendrick Bourne for Trevor. I think that's a good pickup. I know the Patriots don't really look good, but he's clearly their best, you know, make something happen kind of guy. Get him the ball, he'll make something happen. He is like really skinny. Like you wouldn't think he'd be able to like be healthy in the NFL. So it's amazing that he looks as good as he has. But I like that pickup for you. I think he's like a, you know, it could be a spark for you, Trevor.
Yeah, I saw he was trending up, and Alan Lazard is rostered at a higher percentage, but he really just hasn't been doing much. I've had him on the bench most of the season, and I'll probably have Kendrick Bourne on the bench most of the time. But it's just nice peace of mind to have, you know, because you never know, and I'm constantly having some of my best players are always like questionable. So I needed to know that I had someone reliable that I could put in at the last minute if I need to.
Yeah, personally, I think that was the best value pickup of this week. You know, $2. I honestly thought about Kendrick Bourne instead of Darnell Mooney. I was kind of going back and forth between which of those two I wanted to bid for. My thought process on Mooney was if they're potentially making a quarterback change, at least in the short term, maybe that gives him another opportunity to get some more targets than he was getting from Fields. And the Bears have to do something different. I mean, their offense sucks. So maybe it's throwing more to Mooney, getting another guy involved. But, you know, I had Bourne. I liked him earlier. I think that's going to be a really good pickup. And yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for Colin's sake that the Jordan Mason pickup works out. I've had Elijah Mitchell sitting on my bench all year, waiting for an injury to Christian McCaffrey, because I've kind of expected it to come and thinking I might luck into a starting running back there. I don't really know if Mason or Mitchell will be the guy if McCaffrey misses time. So I'm happy that, you know, I have a guy for free that I got late in the draft potentially as a starter if he does miss time. But if Mason is the guy and McCaffrey misses time, I mean, that is good value for a handcuff for a really, really good offense.
Yeah, I didn't mind. I mean, I was absolutely shocked that no one bid for him when you consider Zach Evans has 6 total bids. And Craig Reynolds is a $26 running back apparently. So the fact that no one bid for Jordan Mason was confusing to me, but I don't care. I spent 17. I still got 50 in the bank. But last week, Nick, you said that last year this was the highest spending week of the year. I would imagine it's the same since 2 guys are 52 alone, plus another 17 is 69. So $69 between
Nice.
3 of the players, let alone the next 6 that were, you know, 6 and you know, a couple dollars here and there. But like, interesting to see that week 6 happens to be at least a pattern so far in our league, but a big waiver wire week out of nowhere. I mean, Craig Reynolds being $26. Give me a break. What is Eric doing? How is he the number 2 team in the league, most points for, but he's paying $26 for Craig Reynolds, who's going to be playing maybe 2 weeks? Because, you know, Josh Meir Gibbs is back, right?
Yeah, it should
Or
be.
yeah, I think he's at least, you know, practicing. So just I love these FOBs. I love these waivers because it's amazing. If you want to get your guy, you're spending $20. If there's a guy who's in contention, whoever spends $20 on that guy gets him. And I feel like some of these guys are I mean, look at him, Josh Mari DeMercado last week. He was a $22 running back. He ain't even on the roster. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. So, I mean, 17, I'm surprised. I mean, I'm happy with it. But I just love seeing the mindset of everyone's waiver strategies. I don't know. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and Josh, when you listen to this, I want an explanation of the $0 bid for Zach Evans. Very curious as to whether you outfoxed yourself there or what the thought process was. So we mentioned this is the halfway point of the regular season. And one thing we wanted to do was take a quick look back at the draft and kind of revisit our thoughts on what was a good pick, what wasn't, what looks better than it did at the time, and the like. So I'll kind of open the floor as to whether there's anything people want to touch on.
Well, I think when you posed this in our chat, you just said you started out with biggest bust, biggest steal. So generally, in that order, that's what I went. I would say the obvious one is Nick Chubb, not because of performance, obviously because of injury, but he's the 7th overall pick and is out for the season after what, week 3 or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, it happened in week 2 though, because he played that game. So week 2 out for the season, done. He's 7th overall pick. Got to be the biggest bust. Then the very next pick, Saquon's already missed 3 games. He's only the 29th best running back. So that's just tough when you're. But you kind of it's expected with the territory with Saquon. Like you want it to work for him. He's clearly one of the most special talents in the NFL. But it's just he can't get away from that offense. If I were him, I'd get the fuck out of New York Giants. They suck. But then Ramondre's up there. Unfortunately, my pick, Ramondre, in the 3rd round. He just hasn't been showing up to what I wanted him to do as a Patriots fan, but also as a fantasy owner, which is why I shipped him out to Willie, who happened, and I got back, which is one of the biggest steals. So that's an interesting, perspective on that trade. Like Ramondre might be one of the biggest busts in the draft, and Thielen might be one of the biggest steals in the draft, and they were traded for each other. So that's crazy. And then obviously Pat's defense, I just dropped them today, but clearly not as good as I expected them to be. I thought they were going to be elite, and they aren't even average. And then Najee, he's just on a bad Steelers team. He went in the 3rd round, and he just isn't doing it. So I would say those 5 are my biggest busts.
I think we also have to acknowledge that Austin Eckler. I mean, and I'm sure he'll come back later in the season, but and that would have been my pick, but I actually, based on my strategy, didn't choose him, and I went with Travis Kelce for my first pick, and I'm really glad because as much as I'm sure he'll come back later on, it's like it's week 6. He had a good week 1, but then like 2, 3, 4, and then he had a bye week 5. It's not bringing much to Alex's team there. And it's like a lot of weeks gone by where it's like that's your first pick. You kind of want that to be like your like tent pole of your team, but it's
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look also at the team that's in last place, and you would expect that like their early draft picks probably haven't panned out, and that's probably why they find themselves in last place. But I mean, really, other than Hurts, Alex's first 4 picks are pretty rough. Kittle has not really been like tight end 3 or anywhere close to it so far. Garrett Wilson, I mean, part of it is just the fact that Aaron Rodgers went down, and we all thought Wilson would have a big year with Rodgers. Eckler, as you mentioned, Trevor, not really getting it done. So yeah, I think I agree. Those are all tough picks, but Jerry Jeudy in the 5th round has done nothing for Johnny's team, and that's probably one where he would want that one back. We talked about Kadarius Toney at the time for Willie in the 6th round, and Kadarius is barely rosterable. I think Willie just continues to keep him on the bench to save face for spending a 6th round pick on him. But yeah, I mean, there are Richardson was quarterback 2, but 2 picks later was Tua Tagovailoa. So he could have had Tua, and instead he's got a guy who's now out for the year. He did have a good week or 2, and it's not going to make a big deal when you have Mahomes. But maybe more of saying Tua probably best diamond in the rough pick
Mhm.
to this point in the season. And Rodgers, not Troy's fault at all, obviously, but I'd have to throw Rodgers in there in the very next pick as, you know, one of the biggest busts, given he only lasted 3 snaps.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, in that same vein, I'm going to say he's not a bust yet, but he's definitely underperformed, whether it's from injury or whether it's from that offense trying to figure it out. But Joe Burrow in the 4th round doesn't look to be the pick that Troy kind of wanted him to be, especially considering I know Troy's a big Bengals fan. Not really capitalizing on any sort of stack there either, not taking advantage of Jamar Chase doing what he does, right? So not really turning out to be the pick that he wanted to. That's another one that I can identify as potentially a bust, at least through 6 weeks.
all very good observations there. We all picked good players, you know, like the best players that were picked, the highest picks that have not been doing what they should be doing according to their pick. Um, you know, but then you look at the opposite side, look at Fields, and Thielen's there. Thielen's got to be there. That was
Yeah.
to Willie in the what? Where is he? I don't even.
Ninth round.
Oh, ninth round. Okay, yeah, yeah. Then you got Swift for Rob. He had that good start, and he's been just solid since. In that offense, I didn't think he was going to be able to take care of the lead back role. But they have the best offensive line in football, so almost anybody can do it. But Swift is doing it, so I like that steal for Rob. And then obviously Mostert. I'm not sure where he went, but to Eric's team, 10th round, #1 running back, I would imagine still. #2, #5 player overall, and he's in the 10th round. And then Josh Kobe Myers, killing the game. I'm a fan because he's a former Patriot, but definitely exceeding expectations there, especially with a better receiver in the same room as him. But I like Josh Kobe Myers as a steal there as well.
I like those 3 picks, round 8 to 10 on Eric's team, right? You got David Montgomery, who's banged up right now, but he's been the #1 running back in Detroit. As much as Josh Muir Gibbs fans want to see him kind of do his thing, but Montgomery, Tua, and Raheem Mostert probably the best, at least after the first 3 rounds, 3 picks, and that's probably a reason why Eric's team is so scary, right? Got to talk about Devon Achane as well on Willie's team. Really great pick. And then also Johnny's pick just after Raheem Mostert. Nico Collins has been really good for Houston so far. I like that pick. He's the 8th best receiver right now with his bye week coming this week. So I think that there's a lot of good talent in that 8, 9, 10 round that's really made. I mean, unfortunately, he's on Johnny's team, who's been really underperforming, but Eric's team, made really solid picks in those 8 to 10 round picks.
And by the way, I realize I have to correct the record on something I said. Josh Ford remains on my roster. So it's just the tight ends that were swapped who have both been dropped from that trade with Josh. But I still may end up regretting sending away Josh Kobe Myers in that deal. I personally always value running backs over wide receivers. So I look back. Oh, go ahead, Cam.
I was just saying one last thing, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Nick, but 14th round, Colin picking Tank Dell. Great pick so far.
Yep.
He's probably the reason that one of the reasons why CJ Stroud is balling so far this year. Great pick. He's turned out to be a stud, at least through the first couple of weeks. Kind of fell off last couple of weeks, but Tank Dell has been solid to start the season.
Yeah, he got concussed and hasn't played yet, and then they have a bye this week, so part of it's injury, but yeah, he has shown up as a interesting rookie there in that out of nowhere offense.
Yeah, Puka in the 16th round as well to Troy. Another great late round find. Really good player. So I look back at our
real quick. If we're talking late round picks, not just steals, but Curtis Samuel looking good in that offense. The very next pick for Chichu Heed. I mean, look at the last round here. These are the best picks. Curtis Samuel for Chichu Heed. Michael Mayer. He was dropped and now he's picked up by Nick. So Nick has Michael Mayer. And then Sam Howell to Johnny, looking good, like a good, not a rookie quarterback, but a young quarterback in a struggling offense. But he's looking like he could be something for the future. And then obviously Puka Nakua, that's the obvious one.
Yeah. I looked at our draft recap podcast as well. And I'll just go through some of our takes from that. And you tell me what you think of how we did. So teams we liked coming out of the draft. Colin, Trev was your first mention as a team that you liked. You said also Eric and Troy. Cam, you said Eric. I said Cam. Toilet bowl favorites. Colin, you said Jason. Cam, you said Jason and Trevor. And I said Josh, who is in first place. So great pick by me on a potential worst team in the league. Guy you wanted but didn't get. Colin, you mentioned Tyler Conklin and Zay Flowers. Yeah. Cam, you mentioned Quentin Johnston, who you now have, and Zach Charbonnet. And I mentioned Tank Bigsby and Okonkwo. Okonkwo has been terrible this year, so glad I didn't get him. Lastly, best value pick. Colin, you mentioned Etienne to me in the third round, and that was a good call. He's been like RB3. Hawkinson in the 5th, James Conner in the 8th, Evan Ingram in the 8th, and Tyler Conklin in the 14th. Cam, you mentioned Jalen Hyatt in the 13th, Jahan Dotson in the 7th, and Khalil Herbert. I mentioned Darren Waller in the 5th, Trevor Lawrence in the 5th. That was a garbage pick. Rashad White in the 7th, Josh's whole bench, and Sam Laporta in the 12th. So how did we do?
Not bad, really. I mean, some of us had some good picks, some of us had some terrible picks. But I don't know. I'm glad that we recapped the draft halfway through the regular season here, just to see where we left off and how the season's been going. A lot more movement than I would have expected. There's a lot of teams that Nick, you drafted who was it? Josh Colby Myers. Now he's on Josh's team, but you did the drafting, so you saw value in it at one point, and let him go. But I actually did want to talk about the effects of the trade. Between who I got, Evan Ingram, Quentin Johnson, Demario Douglas, Mike Gesicki, only one player is serviceable, and that's Evan Ingram. So it worked. I would say it worked out because I moved up for him. He's the number 8 tight end. And he's just been kind of consistent. Cam, you got Gabe Davis, Michael Thomas, and Jordan Love from those trades, which has been okay. I mean, Michael Thomas hasn't really, popped off, but he's the number 1 targeted guy there. Jordan Love's been doing all right, and Gabe Davis, he's kind of touchdown dependent, but he'll get you a touchdown every now and again. And then Nick, you got Kirk Cousins and Tyler Boyd, which is okay. I don't know if you've been using Kirk Cousins like you may have expected to. But Tyler Boyd, a good handcuff for the Jamar Chase pick.
Yeah. He's been chilling on the bench, but if Chase gets hurt, that's why he's there. That'll be the purpose. So I wanted to protect my first round pick. So Trevor, let's give you the last word here as we head to the second half of the season. Maybe it's a prediction about your own squad in the back half of the regular season or just the league overall, but you want to make a bold statement, go out on a limb, a bold prediction here on what we see in the second half?
I don't know, man. I mean, I am never good at making predictions. I feel like it's all like, I don't know. It can be so random, you never know what to expect. Bold prediction.
Where do you think you finish?
Hopefully in the top half of the league. I'd be happy with that. I'd just be happy to make the playoffs, honestly.
I like it. Anything else from anyone before we set sail into week 7? All right. Well, thanks all for tuning in once again. Enjoy your week 7 matchups. We'll be back same time next week.
Thank you guys.
Sounds good. Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Trevor.
it's been a
I'll try to.
pleasure.
We'll fight for
The
my
pleasure.
birthday again next year.
Yeah,
The
we
pleasure was
will.
all ours.
All right, guys.